Dr. Kim Day gripped the control stick of her small research ship as warning lights flashed red around her. The engines made terrible grinding sounds before going completely silent. She was falling toward the strange purple planet below, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Emergency beacon activated, she said into her voice recorder, hoping someone would find the message someday. This is Dr. Kim Day of Earth Research Vessel Starwalker. Engine failure over planet designation VX7742. If anyone finds this, tell my family I love them. The ship hit the ground hard, very hard. Metals screamed, and glass shattered. Then everything went black. When Day woke up, she thought she was dreaming. The walls around her seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft blue and green lights that moved like slow heartbeats. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. She tried to sit up, but her body hurt everywhere. "Please do not move," said a voice. That sounded like beautiful music. "Your injuries are still healing." Day turned her head slowly and saw something that made her forget all about the pain. Standing next to what looked like a bed made of living wood was a creature unlike anything in Earth's databases. It was tall and graceful, with smooth plates covering its body that changed color from deep blue to silver. Its eyes were large and kind, made up of hundreds of tiny surfaces that caught the light like jewels. "I am Keeper Velinari, the being," said, speaking perfect English, though its voice had a musical quality. "You are human, yes. We found your vessel 3 days ago. You were very close to death." "We," Day whispered. "My people, the Vethkari. This is our world." Velinari moved closer, and Day could see concern in those strange, beautiful eyes. "I must tell you something important. By helping you, we have broken our most sacred law. We are not supposed to contact beings from other worlds." "Then why did you help me?" Velinari was quiet for a moment. The lights in the walls seemed to pulse faster, matching some emotion Day could not understand. "Because you are calling for help. How could we ignore that? It would be like letting someone drown when we could easily save them." Over the next few days, more Vethkari came to see the strange human. They brought her food that tasted like nothing she had ever eaten but somehow felt perfectly right. They used medicines that seemed to be made from living plants, and her wounds healed faster than should have been possible. Velinari stayed with her most of the time, and they began to talk. He told her about his people, who had learned to grow their cities instead of building them. Everything the Vethkari used was alive in some way. Their computers were made from special corals. Their vehicles were trained animals that loved to carry passengers. Even their tools were living creatures that enjoyed helping with work. "We stopped fighting wars many thousands of years ago," Velinari explained. "We learned that working with life was better than working against it. But because of this choice, we became afraid of other species. We thought all star travelers were violent. Some are," Day admitted, "but not all of us." In return, Day told Velinari about Earth and humanity. She showed him pictures on her damaged tablet computer, cities with millions of people, the blue oceans, the white clouds. She explained how humans built machines and explored space, always looking for new things to discover. Velinari was fascinated by human technology. "Your machines are not alive, but they work so well, and humans can live in so many different places. We have never seen such adaptation. Your biotechnology is incredible," Day said. "The way you work with living systems, it could solve so many problems for my people. Disease, hunger, pollution." They began to share knowledge. Day explained how human computers worked, and Velinari showed her how to communicate with the living walls of their buildings. She taught him about stellar navigation, and he taught her the musical language his people used to talk with their biomachines. Other Vethkari joined their conversations. Young scientists who were curious about the universe beyond their world. They had questions about human culture, human technology, human dreams. Day found herself becoming not just a patient, but a teacher and student at the same time. But not all Vethkari were happy about her presence. Sometimes she heard arguments in the musical language, voices raised in what sounded like anger or fear. Velinary looked worried after these conversations. "Some of my people want you to leave as soon as you are well," he told her one day. "They think contact with humans will bring trouble." "Will it?" Day asked. "I do not know. But I know that meeting you has changed us. We cannot pretend the universe is empty anymore." 6 weeks after the crash, Day's emergency beacon was finally answered. A Earth rescue ship landed near the Vethkari settlement, its crew amazed to find her alive and healthy. As she prepared to leave, Velinary gave her a gift, a small crystal that pulsed with living light. "This is a communication biocrystal," he said. "It will let us talk across the stars. Perhaps someday, our peoples can meet properly, as friends." Day held the crystal carefully. "I promise I will not forget what you did for me. Somehow, I will find a way to return this kindness." She meant every word, though she had no idea how much that promise would matter in the years to come. Back on Earth, Dr. Kim Day sat in meeting after meeting, trying to make people understand what she had found. She showed pictures of the Vethkari cities that grew like forests. She played recordings of their musical language. She explained how their living technology could help solve Earth's biggest problems. But the government officials always said the same things. "Very interesting, Doctor. We will study your report." These things take time. Months passed. Day's detailed files about Vethkari biotechnology sat in computer databases, unread. The colonial administration cared more about finding new planets to mine than making friends with peaceful aliens. Every time she asked about plans for official contact, she got the same answer: "We are still reviewing the situation." Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Keeper Velinary faced his own problems. He stood in the center of the great chamber, where hundreds of Vethkari leaders had gathered. The room was alive, its walls made from a giant organism that could feel emotions. Right now, those walls pulsed with dark, angry colors. Elder K, the oldest and most respected leader, sang her displeasure in deep, sad tones. "You have broken the prime isolation, Velinary. For 10,000 years, we have kept ourselves separate from the Star Wanderers. You have put our entire world in danger." "I saved a life," Velinary replied, his own voice rising in the musical scale that meant strong conviction. "The human was dying. Should I have let her die to follow an old law?" "Yes," said another elder Morthic, his song sharp with anger. "The Star Wanderers bring only war and destruction. Look at the histories we have gathered. They fight over everything: resources, territory, ideas. They will come here with weapons and take what they want." "Not all of them are like that, Velinary," sang back. "Kim Day showed us cooperation, not conquest. She shared her knowledge freely. She taught us new ways to think about the universe." The younger Vethkari in the chamber began to hum in agreement. Many of them had worked with Day during her stay. They had seen how human technology could combine with their biotechnology to create amazing new possibilities. But the elders' songs grew louder and more angry. "You have contaminated our pure way of life," Elder Kesvani declared. "The human filled your minds with dangerous ideas about exploring space and contacting other species. This is not our path." The debate went on for many days. Some Vethkari supported Velinary, especially the scientists who had worked with Day. They argued that isolation was no longer wisdom, but fear. They said the universe was full of wonders they could learn from and species they could help, but tradition was strong among the Vethkari. In the end, the Council of Voices made their decision. Velinary was stripped of his rank as keeper. He could no longer lead research projects or speak for his people in official matters. Several dozen scientists who had supported him faced similar punishment. "You are exiled to the deep groves," Elder Kesvani announced. There you will tend the ancient forests and think about the harm you have caused. Perhaps in time, you will understand why the prime isolation protects us." Velinari accepted his punishment with dignity, but his biocrystal glowed with sadness. The deep groves were beautiful, but lonely. Only a few other exiled Vethkari lived there, caring for trees that had grown for thousands of years. On Earth, Day felt equally frustrated. She gave lectures at universities about Vethkari culture. She published scientific papers about their biotechnology. She testified before government committees about the importance of peaceful first contact. Some people listened with interest, but nothing ever happened. The biocrystal Velinari had given her sat on her desk, pulsing with faint light. Sometimes she held it and whispered messages, hoping somehow he could hear her across the vast distance between their worlds. She told him about her struggles with the government, about her dreams of humans and Vethkari working together, about her promise to return his kindness. 2 years passed. Day began to lose hope that Earth would ever make official contact with the Veth. The colonial administration was busy with mining operations and trade disputes. A peaceful species of plant growers seemed unimportant compared to these practical concerns. In the deep groves, Velinari worked with the ancient trees and thought about the future. He missed his research, missed the excitement of learning new things. Sometimes other exiled Vethkari came to visit him, young scientists who still believed that isolation was wrong. They told him that more and more young people were questioning the old ways. Perhaps change will come, one young researcher named Silvera said during a visit. The elders cannot live forever, and the young ones remember what the human taught us. I hope so, Velinari replied, but I fear that by the time our people are ready to reach out to the stars, it may be too late. He had no idea how right he was. One evening, as Day sat in her laboratory on Earth, the biocrystal suddenly blazed with urgent light. Velinari's voice spoke from within it, but it was different now, panicked, desperate, carrying terrible news that would change everything. The message had traveled for months through space, and every word carried the weight of a world in danger. The biocrystal on Dr. Kim Day's desk suddenly burst with bright, urgent light. She had never seen it glow so strongly before. When she touched it, Velinari's voice filled her laboratory. But something was terribly wrong. His usually calm, musical tones were filled with fear. Kim Day, his voice trembled through the crystal. "Please, if you can hear this message, we need help. They have found us. The hegemony dominion has come to our world, and we do not know what to do." Day's hands shook as she held the crystal closer. She had heard of the hegemony dominion, a group of aggressive alien species that traveled from world to world, taking what they wanted. They were known across the galaxy as conquerors, who showed no mercy. "Their warships appeared in our sky 3 days ago," Velinari's message continued. "So many ships, Kim Day, more than we have ever seen. They sent a message to our Council of Voices. They want to make us part of their empire. They want our biotechnology, our knowledge, our people." The crystal pulsed with each word, and Day could hear the pain in her friend's voice. "The Dominion leader calls himself War Commander, Thekvar. He gave us 7 days to decide. We can surrender and become their slaves, or they will destroy everything. Our cities, our forests, our people, all of it will burn." Day closed her eyes, trying to stay calm as she listened to the desperate message. "We are not warriors, Kim Day. We have no weapons of war, no battleships. Our ancestors chose peace so long ago that we do not even remember how to fight. The Council of Voices meets every day, but what can they decide? How do you fight when you do not know how to hurt others?" There was a long pause in the message, filled only with the soft humming of the crystal. When Velinari spoke again, his voice was even quieter. "Some of our leaders want to surrender. They think if we cooperate with the Dominion, some of our people might survive. They believe we can keep our knowledge safe by serving new masters. but I have studied the history of worlds the Dominion has conquered. Nothing remains, Kim Day. They take everything and leave nothing but empty planets. Day felt tears on her cheeks. These gentle people who had saved her life were facing extinction, and there was nothing she could do to help them. I remember the stories you told us about human warriors, Velinari continued. You said your people fight when they need to protect something important. I do not ask you to fight for us. We are not your responsibility. But if there is any way, any chance that someone might help us. The message was breaking up now, the crystal's light beginning to fade. Velinari's voice became harder to understand. We helped one human once, because it was the right thing to do. We did not expect anything in return. But now, as our world faces its end, I remember your promise. You said you would find a way to return our kindness. I hope, I pray to the deep forest spirits, that somehow, The crystal went dark. The message was over. Day sat in silence for a long time, holding the dead crystal in her hands. Through her laboratory window, she could see the lights of the city, millions of humans, going about their normal lives. None of them knew that on a distant world, an entire species of gentle, peaceful beings faced extinction. She thought about Velinari and the other Vethkari, who had risked everything to save her life. They could have left her to die in the crashed ship. Instead, they had broken their most sacred law to help a stranger. Now, they were going to die, and the people who could save them were too busy with paperwork and politics to care. Day looked at her computer screen, where dozens of unanswered messages from government officials sat in her inbox. All of them said the same thing. Still under review. No decision at this time. Please be patient. She opened a new message and began typing rapidly. She sent the same urgent note to everyone she could think of. Admiral Park Jin-ho, the head of Earth's defense forces. Minister Lee So-young, who controlled colonial policy. Director Kim Min-jin, who made decisions about first contact situations. She told them about the Dominion threat and begged them to act quickly. The responses came back within hours, and they were all the same. Unfortunate situation. Will review options. Cannot commit Earth forces without proper authorization. The approval process will take several months. Several months. The Vethkari had days. That night, Day sat in her apartment, staring at the dark biocrystal and thinking about failure. She had failed her friends. Earth's government had failed them too. Tomorrow, she would have to compose a message to send back to Velinari, somehow explaining that the humans he had trusted were going to abandon him. But as she sat there in the darkness, another idea began to form in her mind. The government might not care about the Vethkari, but what about the people? What about the millions of humans who believed in doing the right thing? Day turned on her computer and began uploading files, videos of the Vethkari cities, recordings of their music, the story of how they had saved her life, and Velinari's desperate plea for help. She posted everything on the public networks with a simple message. They saved my life. Now they're going to die unless we help them. Within minutes, her post began to spread across human space like wildfire. Administrator General Park Soo-min sat in her office late at night, watching the news reports on her computer screen with growing amazement. Every channel was showing the same story, the desperate plea from the alien world called Veth. Dr. Kim Day's post had spread across the human internet faster than anyone had ever seen. The videos of the gentle Vethkari were everywhere. People watched recordings of their singing voices and their cities that grew like living forests. They saw pictures of Velinari and the other scientists who had risked everything to save one human life. And they heard his terrified message begging for help against the hegemony Dominion. Park's assistant, Captain Oh Minji, knocked on the door and entered, carrying a thick stack of papers. Administrator, these are just the first reports. The response is incredible. How incredible? Park asked. In the last 6 hours, Over 50 million people have shared Dr. Kim's post. The hashtag Savathkara is trending on every human world. People are demanding action. Park rubbed her tired eyes. What kind of action? Everything. Protests in major cities. Thousands of retired military personnel volunteering to fight. Mining companies offering to convert their ships into troop carriers. Even civilian scientists trying to build weapons. Captain O paused and looked at her notes. Admiral Lee Hyenwoo called an hour ago. He says volunteers are already gathering at military bases across Earth. Through her office window, Park could see crowds gathering in the streets below. People held signs with pictures of the Vethkari and messages like "We don't abandon friends" and "Earth remembers kindness." The next morning brought even bigger crowds. Park watched the news as reporters interviewed people from all walks of life. A factory worker said, "They saved one of ours when they didn't have to. Now it's our turn." A teacher explained to her students, "This is about what kind of people we want to be." An old veteran spoke simply, "You don't leave friends behind, not ever." By noon, Park's office was flooded with messages from across human space. Cargo ship captains were retrofitting their vessels with weapons. Asteroid miners were offering their heavy equipment as military support. Even luxury cruise ships were being converted to carry troops and supplies. The Colonial Council called an emergency meeting. Park walked into the great chamber where Earth's leaders made their most important decisions. Every seat was filled, and the air buzzed with urgent conversation. Admiral Lee Hyenwoo stood at the front of the room, his uniform crisp and his expression serious. Behind him, massive screens showed images that made everyone gasp. In Earth's orbit, hundreds of ships were gathering, not just military vessels, but converted cargo haulers, mining ships, and even private yachts with weapons bolted to their hulls. "Respected counselors," Admiral Lee began, "in the past 24 hours, over 3,000 ships have requested permission to join an expedition to Vethkara. We have volunteers from every human world, from every walk of life. They're not waiting for official orders. They're preparing to leave with or without government approval." Counselor Kim Tae-hyun stood up, his face red with anger. "This is madness. We cannot start a war with the hegemony dominion over aliens we've never even met officially." "But we have met them," said a familiar voice from the back of the chamber. Dr. Kim Dae walked forward, carrying the biocrystal that had started everything. "They saved my life. They showed me kindness when they had nothing to gain from it. Now they're going to die because we're too afraid to help them." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some counselors worried about the cost of war. Others feared that the Dominion would attack Earth if humans interfered. But more and more voices spoke up in support of action. Counselor Park Jin-soo, an elderly woman respected by everyone, stood slowly. The chamber fell silent to hear her words. "I have lived through many wars," she said quietly. "I have seen what happens when good people do nothing while others suffer. The question is not whether we can afford to help the Vethkari. The question is whether we can afford not to." Admiral Lee stepped forward again. "The people have made their will clear. We now have over 4,000 ships ready to depart. We can either lead this expedition or watch our citizens launch it themselves. But either way, it's going to happen." Park looked around the chamber at her fellow leaders. She thought about the reports coming in from across human space. Children donating their allowances to help fund the mission. Elderly people signing up to serve as medical volunteers. Entire families volunteering to help however they could. "Very well," she announced. "Dr. Kim Dae will accompany the advance fleet as our expert on Vethkari culture and biology. Admiral Lee, you have full authority to organize our response. May the spirits of space guide you to victory." The chamber exploded in cheers and applause. As the meeting ended, Dae felt the biocrystal pulse with warm light in her hands. She brought it close to her lips and whispered, "Hold on, Velinary. Hold on just a little longer. Earth is coming. across human space. The largest fleet in human history prepared for departure. They were going to fight for people they had never met, on a world most of them couldn't find on a map. But they knew why they were going. Someone had helped one of their own, and humans never forgot that kind of kindness. War Commander Dekvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking down at the green and purple planet below. Vethkara hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered with the glowing lights of living cities. In a few hours, all of that beauty would belong to the hegemony Dominion. Status report, he growled to his tactical officer, a reptilian creature with sharp claws and cold eyes. 200 ships in perfect attack formation, Commander. The aliens below have sent no response to our final ultimatum. They appear to be defenseless. Dekvar smiled, showing rows of pointed teeth. Excellent. Begin the invasion. I want their biotechnology laboratories captured intact. Kill anyone who resists, but keep the scientists alive. We need them to understand. They're living machines. But before his officer could give the attack order, the ship's sensors began screaming urgent warnings. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge as the crew scrambled to understand what was happening. Commander, the tactical officer shouted. Ships approaching from the edge of the system. Many ships. How many? Dekvar demanded. The officer stared at his readings in disbelief. Over 4,000 vessels, sir. They're human ships. Dekvar's confidence vanished. Humans were supposed to be weak traders and miners from the outer rim of the galaxy. They didn't have the military power to challenge the mighty Dominion. Yet his sensors showed an enormous fleet bearing down on his position at maximum speed. On the planet below, Keeper Velinari felt hope stir in his chest for the first time in days. The biosensors his people had grown to watch for danger were now singing with different signals, the electromagnetic signatures of human ships, thousands of them, racing toward Vethkara. They came, he whispered to the other Vethkari gathered in the forest command center. Kim Day kept her promise. The humans have come to help us. Admiral Lee Hyenwoo stood on the bridge of Earth's mightiest warship, the Soul's Pride. Around him, his officers worked frantically to coordinate the largest military operation in human history. Through the main view screen, he could see the Dominion fleet arranged in perfect battle formation above the peaceful planet. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Commander Ominsiok. The enemy commander is demanding our immediate surrender. He says, we are outnumbered and outgunned. Lee studied the tactical display. The Dominion ships were bigger and more advanced than most human vessels. In a normal battle, they would have the advantage. But this was not a normal battle. Send a response to the Dominion fleet, Lee ordered. Tell them they have one chance to withdraw peacefully. If they refuse, they will face the consequences. The response came back quickly, mocking laughter and threats of destruction. Very well, Lee said quietly. Signal all ships, weapons free. Show them what happens when someone threatens our friends. The battle that followed would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Dominion had better technology and more experienced crews. But they faced something they had never encountered before. Humans fighting not for territory or profit, but for beings who had shown kindness to one of their own. Every human ship, from converted cargo haulers to mighty battleships, threw themselves at the Dominion lines with fierce determination. When the cruiser Busan Defender took critical damage, her captain rammed his dying ship into a Dominion destroyer rather than retreat. Fighter pilots who ran out of missiles used their small ships as guided weapons. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fell under Dominion fire, but for every vessel lost, 2 more took its place. The Dominion had never faced an enemy that fought with such passion and refused to give up. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Strange new ships began rising from Vethkara's surface, vessels that looked more like giant flowers than spacecraft. These were Vethkari bioships, and they carried a gift for their human friends. Admiral, Commander O reported with wonder. In his voice, the Vethkar's ships are releasing some kind of biological agent. It's not harmful to us, but the Dominion vessels, ... Something's happening to their systems. The Vethkari had spent their last few days preparing a desperate weapon. Using their knowledge of biology, they had created microscopic organisms that could attack the organic components in Dominion technology. The alien ships began to malfunction as their biomechanical systems turned against them. One by one, Dominion vessels went dark. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines shut down. Within 2 hours, the proud Dominion fleet was floating helplessly in space. Their crews trapped aboard dead ships. War Commander Dekvar found himself facing Admiral Lee in his own command center after human Marines had boarded his flagship. The alien commander's arrogant expression had been replaced by confusion and fear. "This is impossible," Dekvar snarled. "You are humans. You are supposed to be weak. How do you have such power?" Lee looked at the defeated commander with something close to pity. "Because they helped one of ours," he said simply. "And Earth will burn before we let them fall." 6 months later, Dr. Kim Day stood in the gardens of Nouvelle Thera, watching human and Vethkari children play together among glowing trees. The biocrystal that had carried that desperate message now pulsed with warm, steady light, no longer a plea for help, but a symbol of friendship between worlds. Velinari approached through the garden, no longer in exile, but now the first Veth ambassador to humanity. "The council has made their decision," he said in his musical voice. "We will join you among the stars as partners and friends." Above them, human and Vethkari ships patrolled together, protecting a galaxy that had learned a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the willingness to protect those who show kindness to strangers.